Check, check, check. Is anyone out there? Anyone? I'm looking for musicians who were on the 1967 Centennial Barge. Anybody? The year was 1967, and Canada was celebrating its centennial.
I think it's more of a celebration, 100 years of Canada, New Canada.
A series of entertainment vehicles were commissioned and traveled all across the country.
There was a semi-truck train that traveled around Canada that year.
But we didn't have any trains, we didn't have any roads, but we had a good water system.
In the 60s and stuff, the Northwest Territories was still, fairly isolated. It was kind of like a different world than the rest of places.
The North had its own unique vessel, a flotilla of barges carrying a walk-through exhibition, accommodations for musicians and staff, and a Ferris wheel.
That was quite the year, all right. I remember I was working as a reporter on the Centennial Barge.
The barge traveled all the way up the Desjarlais River, stopping at each community en route.
Yeah, we traveled quite a bit down Mackenzie River from Hudson all the way down to town.
The first stop for the barge was in Hay River, where they held the inaugural launch.
That's when the whole celebration started.
You see the smiles upon their faces as the word spreads over town. If that rumor's right, tomorrow night that first barge comes to town.
They had this big barge, and they had the big Ferris wheel on it, on top of it.
I remember thinking it was very colorful and cool.
Big stringers of flags.
Rick would be playing the organ and basically entertaining the people having fun on the barge on the Ferris wheel.
I remember they had corn on the cob with, tons of butter on a stick.
That's when I ever first tasted the cotton candies.
They had a ceremonial launching, and she had a bottle of champagne and smashed it on the hull.
It's got fresh greens, blue jeans, pork and beans, pea greens, a roll of finer twine and silverware.
The organizers had hired some local talent to play music in each community.
They call it, what's it called, talent show?
The band that we formed then was called the Centenaires to coincide with that.
And the Centenaires were more of a dance band.
The Centenaires lineup included Lawrence Thrasher, Eddie Basie, David Ivalek, Tom Hudson, and Archie Plamondon. Rick Williams was the organist in residence aboard the Centennial Barge.
Well, we traveled in 67 on the barge, so...
We got together, we got married, and started singing, started the Tunderfolk, the original Tunderfolk.
The barge was our first paying gig.
The lineup for Tunderfolk included Ted and Leslie Wesley and Andy Steen.
I think there were some other groups too, Stained Glass Illusion.
Stained Glass Illusion included Wayne Bertrand, Gary Tees, John Tees, and Larry Glowich.
So we got invited, and the way it worked out for the Centennial Barge,
we got to travel up the Mackenzie River, stopping at a settlement every second day. And
that was the challenge. We had to make sure we know enough music. Like if somebody wanted us to play polka music.
Who knows the polka? You start playing something like that, and people respond in different fashions, and it's beautiful.
The barge left the dock in Hay River, full of musicians as passengers. They went on a musical journey that the North had never seen before.
Before we get to community, our band, we play on top of the barge trailer.
And as the barge approached, we had the Ferris wheel running. If you can visualize an organ playing out there, being broadcast and echoing off the trees and just filling up the whole valley, where, you know, people are freaking out. They see this thing coming down the river, all these weird noises coming out, and they're going to pull up the dock.
And just throwing the plank down off of the, off of the boat onto the shore, and walking the plank onto the shore with our equipment. And
The place is deserted. You know, like, I mean, the barge pulls in there. We basically have to jump onto the dock and tie ourselves up because there's nobody to help us there. You look around and there's people staring from behind the buildings.
all of the townspeople standing on the shoreline, just greeting us.
And everybody had fun. It was...
The Mackenzie's more than muddy water, the Mackenzie's more than sand. It takes more than a lot of water to make the river grand. It takes men and women who scratch for life in a cold and friendly land. Her greatness is her people, and I'll have you understand.
Once the barge reached the northernmost community, it was time for it to turn around.
The barge had to come back. They wanted Yellowknife to be the final stop.
While the barge made its way back south to Yellowknife, Ted and Leslie Wesley and Andy Steen continued their tour with the Tundra folk, the trio flying in a Cessna 185 to even more remote communities in the high and eastern Arctic.
Beaver Water, Beechcraft, Cessna 182, 30,000 people counting on you. Bush playing and coming, I hear you whining in the wind.
This exposed them to a variety of traditional Indigenous musical talent across the north.
Because we were mobile enough, and there was 3 of us, so we could fit into a small airplane. We were in a Cessna 185 on floats. We flew across the rest of the Arctic. Wherever we could land, we stopped and performed for the people.
This experience would later be very influential and lead to bigger opportunities for musicians in the Northwest Territories. In the meantime, the Centennial Barge was arriving in the big city of Yellowknife.
I remember when the boat came into town and we could see it coming up the lake from out on the big lake into the bay.
And I remember them tying her up at the dock. I don't remember the tug staying. It seemed like the tug went away and they just left the barge. But maybe they left the tug.
Most of us kids who lived around the rock at the time all gathered there to watch it part.
Of course, all the kids on their bikes and all the, boy bike gangs were all down there looking to see what was going on, sticking their faces into where they shouldn't have been.
I remember the cook and the cook's helper, I guess, throwing us oranges and apples because those were quite a treat for kids in Yellowknife back in the day.
We took a ride on the Ferris wheel, and it was very, very scary because the Ferris wheel was right there on the side of the river.
We'd be swaying back and forth onto the next loop. I'm still afraid of heights. I think that's why I only grew to be 5'7".
At the government dock, all of the musicians played one last big performance.
That was what drew me to go and have a look, because they were playing the music.
It was like a big carnival type thing, and we were flying high, boy, I tell you that. Together, everybody got tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. So when we got to Yellowknife, we were already pretty confident bunch.
The Centenaires ended up with a big dance.
Like I said, it was like the circus came to town.
Midnight sun, 1,000 miles of swamp and tundra.
This once-in-a-lifetime experience propelled many aspiring musicians' careers. Eventually, leading to an internationally recognized music festival known as Folk on the Rocks.
Because we performed and the community gathered, we came across other musicians that played, but they were stuck in their local communities. But, Everybody was different because there was no cross-reference with anybody. Across the Arctic, we made contact with those musicians again because, you know, so they practiced and come up with more original stuff. And then throat singers as well. Like, I mean, I first heard them in Cambridge Bay. And then we got them invited to, and it was as well as a few other performers to come to Yellowknife for the real beginnings of the Folk on the Rocks.
The 1967 Centennial Barge Odyssey down the Mackenzie River was an important milestone for the North. A daunting initiative that brought together Northerners in remote communities, spread out over 1 million square miles of the Northwest Territories, that at that time included the territory of Nunavut. For those who participated, the experience has matured into a cultural legacy that echoes throughout the northern musical community to the present day.
I'll make for you the